I really believed I was over her. Not in the dramatic, movie-ending kind of way, but in the quiet way you convince yourself when life keeps moving and you don't want to be left behind. I stopped checking my phone for her name. Stopped replaying old conversations in my head while brushing my teeth. Stopped wondering if she still thought of me when a song came on the radio. That's what I told myself, at least. Time did what it always does, it softened the edges. The memories didn't disappear, they just stopped hurting as loudly. I built a version of myself who smiled easily, who laughed at the right moments, who said, "I'm fine," and almost believed it. Almost. There were days I felt proud. Proud that I survived loving her. Proud that I could say her name without my chest tightening. Proud that I could talk about love again without seeing her face first. I thought healing meant forgetting. I was wrong. Healing just taught me how to live with the absence. And then life happened. Work deadlines. New faces. New routines. People who flirted casually, touched my arm like it meant nothing, looked at me like I was a possibility instead of a memory. I let them. I tried. I even smiled back. But something always felt muted. Like listening to music with one earphone missing. I told myself it was normal. That not every love is supposed to feel like a wildfire. That maybe growing up meant settling into something calmer. I had no idea how fragile that lie was. Because all it took was one moment. One familiar laugh. One familiar presence. For everything I buried to start breathing again. And when she walked back into my life, I realized something terrifying. You can move on. You can grow. You can heal. But some loves don't end. They wait. I never expected to see her again. Not in a crowded cafe, not across a dimly lit street, not anywhere my carefully structured life might intersect with hers. And yet, there she was. Standing there like she hadn't aged a day, with that same crooked smile that used to make my heart race for no reason at all. My chest tightened in a way I hadn't felt in years, a mix of panic and something dangerously familiar, something I thought I had buried. I froze mid-step, unsure whether to greet her with the casual ease I had mastered with strangers, or to run away like a coward. My mind raced, replaying every word I could say, every graceful entrance I could make. And still, nothing seemed enough. She saw me. Of course she saw me. And in that moment, the cafe disappeared. There was no clatter of cups, no background hum of conversation, just her eyes locking onto mine with that impossible intensity. She smiled. Not the polite, distant smile of an acquaintance, but the one that held stories, shared secrets, and nights neither of us would ever forget. My heart betrayed me, skipping beats I thought were long gone, reminding me of what I'd been trying to ignore. "I didn't expect to see you here," she said, her voice low, warm, wrapped in that familiar timbre that still made me weak in the knees. And just like that, every lie I told myself about being over her crumbled. All the times I told myself I was fine, all the ways I convinced myself that I had moved on, they felt like sand slipping through my fingers. I had to remind myself to breathe. 1, 2, 3. Because here she was, in the flesh, real and impossible to ignore. And I realized, maybe for the first time in a long time, that some people aren't just memories. Some people come back to challenge the life you've built, to shake the foundation you thought was unshakable. And deep down, I knew this wasn't just a coincidence. Some loves, they don't let go so easily. The first few minutes felt like a carefully choreographed dance of politeness. We exchanged words that sounded normal, casual, almost indifferent. But every glance, every tiny gesture, betrayed a truth we weren't ready to admit. The spark was still there. I caught her eye across the table, and for a split second, I was back in the past, the late-night talks, the secret smiles, the way our laughter collided and refused to be contained. It hit me like a lightning bolt. I hadn't just loved her. I had loved us. And now, sitting here, pretending we were just two strangers catching up, it was impossible to ignore. My pulse raced, my hands felt too warm, and my mind screamed, "Don't let this happen again." But what if it's supposed to? We laughed, awkwardly at first, about trivial things, coffee choices, work mishaps, the weather, but each shared laugh felt like a thread stitching the distance between us. It wasn't the same as it had been, it was better, or at least more dangerous. Because now I knew what it felt like to lose her, and I wasn't sure I could survive losing her again. There was a moment when our hands brushed. Just a fleeting touch as she reached for her cup. But the electricity that sparked through me was undeniable. I felt it in my chest, my stomach, even in the tips of my fingers. And I knew she felt it too. "You've changed," I said, my voice quieter than I intended, but she didn't flinch. She just smiled, the kind of smile that both reassured and taunted. "So have you," she replied, and the way her eyes lingered on mine made my heart stop and start at the same time. In that instant, I realized the truth I had been running from. I wasn't over her. Not then. Not now. Not ever. And maybe that was okay. Maybe some loves aren't meant to be forgotten. They're meant to be rediscovered, rewritten, and given a second chance. But giving my heart back to her, that would be the hardest part yet. The more we talked, the more I realized how much had changed, and yet, how much had stayed the same. She spoke about her life with a calm confidence I envied, about choices she'd made and paths she'd taken, and I listened, caught between admiration and longing. And then came the part that always terrified me, the vulnerable, unguarded moments. The ones she let slip in between laughs and small talk. "I never stopped thinking about you," she admitted, almost in a whisper, as if saying it out loud could break something delicate. Time froze. My chest tightened. My carefully built walls of indifference crumbled, leaving me exposed in the most terrifying and exhilarating way. I wanted to respond, to tell her the same, but my voice caught in my throat. I had told myself for years that I was over her, that I had moved on, that my heart was safe, but none of that was true. Hearing her confession made every memory, every stolen glance, every whispered secret come rushing back. I remembered how it felt to be seen, truly seen, by someone who understood the corners of your soul no one else could touch. And now she was back, standing in front of me, making me remember all over again. I started, unsure how to finish, how to let words carry the weight of years and unspoken feelings. She tilted her head, waiting, patient, but not pressing. And in that pause, I realized something frightening. If I didn't act, if I didn't admit what I was feeling, this chance, this moment, might slip away. Because the truth was undeniable. The spark, the connection, the love that had defined so much of my past, it wasn't gone. It had been waiting, quiet, but persistent, like a shadow that refuses to disappear. And now, in the presence of her, it demanded to be noticed. Confusion swirled through me. Fear, hope, desire. They collided in a storm I wasn't ready to tame. But one thing was certain, I couldn't pretend anymore. The past was here, alive and breathing, and it was asking for a second chance. I felt it then, the pull I had tried to deny for so long, the magnetic, irresistible pull toward her. Every laugh, every glance, every subtle brush of her hand was a reminder of what I had loved, what I had lost, and what I could still have. And yet, hesitation lingered. Fear whispered in the quiet spaces between my heartbeats. What if it doesn't work this time? What if I get hurt again? I watched her, studying the way her eyes softened when she looked at me, the slight tilt of her head, the warmth in her smile. It was the same, yet somehow more powerful now. The years apart had added layers to her, depth I hadn't anticipated, and suddenly, the idea of letting her go again was unbearable. "I thought I was over you," I said, finally, voice trembling, raw. "I thought I could move on, but seeing you, being with you again, I realize I never really stopped." Her eyes glistened, and she reached out, gently brushing my hand. "I never stopped either," she whispered. "I didn't know if I could or if I should, but here we are." And just like that, the hesitation began to melt. The fear didn't disappear completely, but it was overshadowed by the overwhelming certainty that some loves are worth every risk, worth every heartbreak, worth every second of uncertainty. We didn't rush, didn't force anything. We just sat there, hands touching, hearts reconnecting, letting the silence speak volumes. The world outside could wait. The past, the pain, the doubts, they all faded, leaving only the possibility of what could be. I realized then that love isn't always neat. It isn't always easy. Sometimes it comes back in ways you never expect, at moments you never planned for, forcing you to confront everything you thought you had left behind. And maybe, just maybe, that's what makes it unforgettable. Because the truth is simple, undeniable, and terrifying. Until she walked into my life again, and this time, I wasn't letting go.